Hey everyone, welcome to a new video. I wanted to go ahead and make a video. I don't want this video to be alarming at all, but I really wanted to grab your attention because things seem to be definitely changing at Adobe Stock. If you're going to be uploading images to Adobe Stock over time, this might be something you want to pay attention to. In the last I don't want to say in the last 2 weeks, but let's just say in general about the last month and a quarter, so about 5 weeks, there has been what seems to be to me, and I don't know if this is a coincidence, but a little bit higher rejections, a little bit more than normal. So for example, if my rejection rate is normally, let's say 4% or 5%, it might have went up to 25%, which is pretty significant. Definitely not something I'm used to. And so I wondered if it's just me or if it's other people. Well, I kind of thought that part of the reason that it would be just me is because, and I'm currently not ruling this out, but there have been situations to where I upload a lot of images in a period of a week or two. So roughly about 3 to 4 weeks ago, I uploaded and published, submitted over 6,000 images. And that's not an exaggeration. Across my accounts, over 6,000 images. And for those who don't know, you are allowed to have multiple accounts on Adobe, but there are certain requirements and certain things that you're supposed to do. I'm not going to get into what those things are, because it is complicated and I don't generally advise on these kind of things. I usually just tell people the safest way is just to have a single account. But, I'm an experimenter. I like to try different things, and we'll cut to the chase. I have published pretty much over 6,000 photos in one shot. Now, that's a little bit above my limit as to how much I'm supposed to do. At least that's what I think. And so I thought, right, that I'm violating some sort of rule, and the higher rejections were for that reason. I also thought that the people who are reviewing my account is probably a singular person, and they keep seeing my name pop up, and they're reviewing every single one of my images, and sometimes they'll just, maybe flag a whole set of, let's say, 200 images in one shot. Could be, 250, 300 images. Now, to some people, that doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're publishing images and 25% of them or 20% are being rejected, it's a good percentage. I mean, it does make a difference, especially if I'm submitting 6,000 plus images in a span of 2 weeks. So what I did was, I really wasn't sure. So, and typically, sometimes when I publish a lot of images in one shot, sometimes I like to give a resting period or a back off period where I just don't publish any more images. I might tag and title some images using AI, but other than that, I won't just publish them. I'll just kind of hold it back for a little while, and then I'll get back to publishing. It's been probably about a month now that I haven't really published any large amount of images. Maybe not a month, maybe a little bit less than a month. But like I said, around 3 to 4 weeks ago, that's when I did the really big publish. So ever since then, I haven't really published much. But I did get a comment a little recently, maybe in about a period of 8 days ago, where somebody was asking me, they're like, hey, I'm getting a bunch of rejections now for, I'm not really sure why, for no reason. And the images that were accepted previously, these are the same style images, but they're being rejected. And so I thought, you know what? Let me make a post about this. Let's go ahead and do a poll. So 6 days ago, technically in a few hours, it'll be 7 days ago, but I made a poll that says, in the last 2 to 3 weeks, has Adobe been, and then people would select. So I have here about the same, nothing really noticeable. I have noticeably more strict, giving more rejections, and then I put here noticeably less strict, approving more of my images. Now, the people who are saying it's less strict, approving more of my images, that's 10% of the population. And then here we have 32% of the population saying they didn't really notice much. Now, that could be for various reasons, who really knows. But here we have noticeably more strict, giving more rejections. The reason why I say these results are kind of inconclusive, and I know people might look at this and say, well, it's a done deal. Adobe's more strict. Everybody's voting, or 58%, which is the majority of people are voting and saying it's more strict. So quite extreme here, the concept. If you're not using Midjourney, you're not using Leonardo AI, what else could you be using? That's really high quality. Probably Stable Diffusion, like a generalized version that you're training yourself on your own computer. You're probably not going to be sitting there for 5, 10, 20 minutes just to create one really high quality photo. A few days, I think maybe around the time I posted this, I forget what date it was exactly. I got this email from Adobe. And to be honest, I rarely ever check my email accounts for Adobe stock or anything like that. But this was an email I got, and I'm sure everyone else got this as well. So it says here, at Adobe, maintaining a single contributor account not only strengthens the visibility of your portfolio, but also enhances discoverability and customer engagement, lending to greater opportunities. A single contributor account provides more insightful performance metrics, optimizes search, and offers a seamless experience for customers engaging with your work. In the beginning, and this is the most important part, beginning of March 25th, 2025, I think I checked it on the 27th. Okay, I saw this email on the 27th. Contributors will no longer be able to create additional Adobe stock contributor accounts unless written approval is granted. We understand that certain contributor businesses may have specific operational needs, and in those cases, exceptions may be considered. For more information requesting an exception, please refer to, and then they leave the link. If you currently have more than one contributor account, no action is required. As part of this policy and further improve your account security, we are introducing phone verification for new account creation. Now, what does this mean? This is not, you could read in between the lines and exactly what this means. Adobe is tightening. They're definitely becoming more strict in terms of account creation. Now, from my assumptions, and this is all based on my analysis, but definitely backed up by knowledge and experience, why would they be implementing this? That means more people are creating accounts. That means more attention is coming to this contributor business. More submissions are happening, and maybe they want to do more quality control. So in the process of that, it could potentially be, because this has proof that, they're kind of putting more requirements now. Phone verification, you can only have one account into the future, things like that for new creators. There is some signaling here that Adobe is definitely trying to become more strict. And what happens is you have Adobe who leads the line, at least in earnings for the platforms. Of course, there's others. You have Shutterstock, Getty, all these kind of great ones. But Adobe, kind of holds the front line for most companies. Shutterstock people, and I've been working on Shutterstock recently. I've been uploading images to Shutterstock. Shutterstock doesn't allow AI images. So you have companies that are large, they make a lot of money, maybe not as big as Adobe, not necessarily from a image standpoint, from a stock photography standpoint, but from just internal, company revenue overall. Adobe has their suite, the Creative Cloud, the whole thing. They make a lot of money. My point is that these guys are leading the front line, and they're experiencing things that are forecasting less profits, and they have to figure out how to be able to handle this. Every company, we spoke about this years ago when we were talking about print on demand, things like this. We talked about how there's only two ways a company can make money. Either they're going to get rid of expenses, aka employees, fees, things like that, or they're going to increase the cost of their product. In the case that we're in today, there's no room for Adobe to increase the cost of their product, at least not that I know of, for stock photography, right? Because there's always the alternative. They could find other companies as customers, they could find other companies, or they can use AI tools. And if they don't know about it, they eventually will. That's the first thing. So what are they going to do? They got to cut costs. One of the first things that they can cut are costs where burn rate tends to increase. Now, what is burn rate? Burn rate in a company is how much you are spending no matter what just to keep the doors open. That's not without doing extra business or anything. What is the burn rate? The burn rate in this case is a huge amount of server costs, because these images are not really being taken down off the internet. They're not being cycled through. They're staying on their servers. They're paying for them. So server costs are going to be one of the main things that contribute to burn rate, right? So if, let's just say, the company has to pay $10 million in servers every single month, they can forecast and see how much is that going to grow over time based on how contributors are basically posting images. So one thing they could slow down is, first off, the amount of people who are creating accounts, right? The amount of accounts that are being created, that's the first thing. The second thing they can control is how many accounts a person has for the future. The third thing they can control is through verification, right? Phone number verification that you're creating an account. And then the fourth thing they can control is what kind of images you're actually submitting, right? Because the images kind of make a difference. I mean, let's be honest. Would you rather have, if you were a business owner, in this case for Adobe, if you were the CEO of the company, would you rather have somebody submit, 500,000 images or 20,000, but all 20,000 are much higher quality? As a business owner, you'd probably select 20,000, especially because you have millions and millions of contributors. If you only had one or two contributors, you'd probably want your contributor to post as much as they humanly possibly can. But in this case, that's not the case, right? Adobe has tons of contributors and growing. Because of the advent of AI, there has probably been a spike of the amount of people that are signing up for Adobe stock and other kind of platforms. Meanwhile, before AI, like right before AI, stock photography was actually dropping off. It was being less prioritized because of other types of incomes hustles, right? I mean, you could build an e-commerce store, you could do print on demand, you can write ebooks. There's so many things that you can do to generate an income online, especially because of AI. And before image generation really took its own space in the market, people were drawing less to stock photography as an income source. In fact, there were stock photographers, and I'm sure many of the people who watch this video who actually do stock photography for real, go out with a camera, with a drone, etc., can probably speak on this, that they are probably at one point in time looking for other sources of income that could potentially replace their whole entire stock photography type flow. So with that being said, guys, it's very clear to me right now that Adobe stock is becoming more strict. Now, are they becoming more strict from a photo inspection point of view? We still don't know. Adobe never came out and said, hey, we're going to reject images at a higher rate now. They never really said that. At least, I don't know. I don't think that they said that, at least from my research. But this email is, like I said, it's kind of, I don't want to use the word foreshadowing, but if you read in between the lines, you can kind of see where Adobe's moving here. More tighter control. But I wish I could see what countries people are voting from when they vote through my polls. I really just can't tell because, like I said, YouTube doesn't give us the data, but it would give us a lot of true information had we known. With that being said, I'm going to start going back to uploading again. So on Adobe stock, like I said, after I uploaded around 6,000 plus images and published, and when I say upload, I really mean publish, guys. Truthfully, I uploaded way more than 6,000, probably like about 15,000 across all accounts. On the small account that I was kind of showing on my YouTube members area, which is through this video, whenever you see members only badge, you know what I'm talking about. These kind of videos, I think I uploaded maybe 11,000 images, 10,000, something like that, over the past 2 or 3 weeks. Let me correct my grammar. Over a 2 or 3 week period, maybe roughly 2 week period, but I uploaded, like I said, maybe 11,000 images, submitted probably around 6,000, published them. So my point here is, this is what I'm trying to say, is that I will get back to uploading and we'll get a true feel for it within the next 30 days, or at least when the next 30 days are over. So we are January, February, March, April. Once April is finished, then we'll kind of understand, is truly Adobe stock a little more strict. But it's very clear that they definitely want to slow down account creation. And, what's the point of having a less amount of accounts? It's because they want less publishing. That's my whole analysis on it. As far as solutions, guys, the solutions are out there. There's many sources of incomes that you can generate, but also there's other stock photography sites out there. Something that I'm doing is I'm uploading to Shutterstock. Okay, so yes, you have to use a real camera for Shutterstock. I'll make an entirely different video on this and show kind of what photos I'm taking and things like that. But you can do it as cheap as using, like a cheap iPhone or something like that to take pictures. There's a lot of things you could do. There's a lot of different ways to generate income out there in the world. So this is not a bad thing. Adobe stock is tightening its constraints is not a bad thing. I really, to be honest, between me and you, I wish that a lot of people over the next, let's say, year and a half. After this year and a half, it's going to be smooth sailing. They're going to get a lot of people off the platform. I definitely can predict and see a lot of people being banned off of Adobe stock. I can see a lot of people being thrown off of the platform. I can see people, you guys know how it is. You remember on Redbubble when people complain getting banned for no reason, all that kind of stuff. It's going to be the same thing here. I could really see that. Hopefully, and I truly have faith that this is going to be good at the back end, after like a year and a half kind of period. But what we can do now is if you're currently uploading to Adobe stock, keep uploading. But really, really start looking into different forms of income. Okay? The reason why I say that is because, and I've been saying this since day one, why are you relying on one source of income for your future? There's no reason for it. If you're creating images on stock photography sites, find other stock photography sites that you can take those images and upload them to, right? So Vecteezy, FreePic, if you're doing photographs, you're not doing AI maybe, you could do Shutterstock, right? Alamy. There's a lot of different places you can upload stuff. Dreamstime. There's a lot of different things you can do. That's number one. So take your resources that you've already built, upload them to new sites. Everybody here should be learning how to build a website. Everybody here should know how to build a website and should own a website and should have some sort of product that they are selling. It could be a digital product. It could be a physical product. But everybody here should know how to do that. You should know how to do SEO for a website. Pretty basic, doesn't really cost you anything, but you should know how to do it. You should know how to put a blog together. You should know how to do marketing. Speaking of blogging and marketing, things like that, I posted some videos here in this series, and you could go to my playlist here, but it's about how to create a book and sell it, right? And I kind of talked about the idea of generating passive income. One of the easiest ways to do that is by writing a book. Now, you have really two methods. Obviously, you could do the KDP strategy, or you can do building your own website, or you could do a hybrid between both. I like building my own website. However, I literally just got back on KDP maybe yesterday or the day before. I had a book published. It was 90 pages. And I wrote it through typewriter, so I made a video on typewriter, but I wrote a book using AI. Didn't take much time at all, but it came out great. And, I added my own spruce to it. Obviously, I added my own images, my own things like that, but I just published a book on KDP, literally, and this has been through years. I haven't published a book on KDP in the last, 8 years. That's what I've been doing in the past 2 weeks. And I'm going to create a website around that book. I'm going to promote it. I'm going to run ads to the website. I'm going to do the whole thing and create a whole brand around the book to be able to generate a brand and passive income through the brand. There's a lot of things that you guys could do to make more money. And the worst thing you could do, and if you guys haven't learned from print on demand, you should learn here, is that do not ever rely on one source of income. I can't explain that enough. I can't stress that enough. There's not much I could say to that. I could say that over and over and over again, but people still choose not to, and they'll choose not to go for new sources. There's not much you could say there at that point, but I hope everyone out there does find more sources of income and builds more sources of income. We talk about them here. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much it. I'll upload more videos for the book series if you guys are consistently watching. I know some of you do enjoy that, and I will consistently post, but I figured I would have to do this update for people who are looking into this. So hopefully this video helps you guys out. I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, and peace out. Bye.